The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched high into the artificial sky. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the floating seats that surrounded the central platform. Today was special. Today they would decide the fate of a new species that wanted to join their council. Ambassador Hyunwoo walked slowly across the smooth floor. His simple gray uniform looked plain next to the colorful robes and armor of the other delegates. Behind him, 2 human guards followed quietly. They carried no weapons that anyone could see. Their small shuttle sat in the docking bay, looking tiny next to the massive warships that other species had brought. The reptilian Saurian delegate named Veltar stood up from his seat. His green scales caught the light as he moved. "Look at this human," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "He comes here with a toy ship and speaks of wanting peace. Their entire military could not fight even one of our small patrol groups." Laughter filled the hall. The crystal beings called ethereals made musical sounds that showed their amusement. Their leader spoke in a voice like ringing bells. "We have seen their technology reports. Chemical rockets, metal bullets. We stopped using such simple things thousands of years ago." Hyunwoo stood calmly in the center of the platform. He did not show anger or fear. His dark eyes looked around the room as being after being made jokes about his species. The tall stone creatures called Goliaths rumbled with deep laughter. The floating energy beings called wisps flickered in patterns that meant they found humans funny. A massive Goliath named Thekmor stepped forward. His body was twice as tall as any human and made of living rock. In his huge hands he held a datapad that contained all of humanity's military information. "I have studied these humans carefully," he announced. "They have exactly 3,247 ships. All of them use old technology. No energy shields, no reality weapons, no dimensional travel. They have the military strength of 0.03% compared to our weakest member." More laughter echoed through the hall. A spider-like creature with 8 legs clicked its mandibles. "Perhaps they could clean our ships for us," it suggested. This made everyone laugh even harder. Veltar slithered down to face Hyunwoo directly. "Human, your species is too weak to stand alone in this galaxy. There are many dangerous things out here. Pirates, slavers, the hegemony bioships that eat entire worlds. You need protection." He showed his sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. "The Saurian Empire will take care of you. You will give us your colonies to manage. We will keep you safe." "And what do we get in return?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. "You get to live," Veltar replied. "That should be enough." The other delegates nodded their agreement. This was how things worked in the galaxy. Strong species protected weak ones. In exchange, the weak species gave up their freedom and served their protectors. It was the natural order. Hyunwoo looked around the hall one more time. He saw beings who had conquered hundreds of worlds, creatures who could destroy planets with their thoughts, ancient species who had traveled between galaxies. All of them looked down at him with amusement or pity. "Humanity accepts these terms," he said simply. The vote was quick and unanimous. Humanity would become a protected species under Saurian control. They would be allowed to keep their home world, Earth, but all their colonies would be watched over by Saurian governors. Human ships would need permission to travel between systems. Human trade would be controlled and taxed. As the session ended, delegates began to leave. Many stopped to look at Hyunwoo as they passed. Some patted him on the shoulder in mock sympathy. Others whispered to each other about how pathetic humans were. "Don't feel bad, little human," said an ethereal as it floated past. "Many species start weak. Perhaps in a few thousand years you will be strong enough to protect yourselves." Hyunwoo bowed politely. "Thank you for your wisdom," he replied. When the hall was nearly empty, Veltar approached again. "My ships will arrive at your colonies within 1 month," he told Hyunwoo. "Make sure your people understand their new situation. Any resistance will be dealt with harshly." "I understand," Hyunwoo said. "My people value peace above all things." "Good," Veltar hissed. Weak species that know their place tend to live longer. After all the aliens had left, Hyunwoo walked slowly back to his shuttle. His guards fell into step beside him. None of them spoke until they were safely inside their ship, and the doors had closed. "How did it go, sir?" asked Captain Min-soo, the shuttle's pilot. "Exactly as planned," Hyunwoo replied. He moved to the communication console and began typing in a long string of codes. "Send this message to Admiral Ji-hai immediately." The message was simple. Phase 1 complete. They believe exactly what we wanted them to believe. Far away in the Sol system, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon, Admiral HFY received the transmission aboard the massive ship called Taigukgi. The ship was invisible to any scanners, protected by technology that bent light and energy around it like water flowing around a stone. HFY was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been preparing for this day for over 20 years. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. These were humans, but they were not the weak, primitive beings that the galaxy believed them to be. Message received, Admiral, reported Communications Officer Yunjung. Ambassador Hyunwoo confirms that the Council has accepted our military reports as accurate. HFY allowed herself a small smile. Perfect. How long until our fleets are ready? All ghost ships are in position, replied Tactical Officer Byung-ho. The dimensional gates are charged and ready. Deep space units report all systems green. We can begin operations at any time. Not yet, HFY said. Let them get comfortable first. Let them think they know everything about us. When the time comes to reveal our true strength, it will be much more effective. She turned to look at the main screen, which showed the peaceful blue world of Earth spinning slowly in space. It looked so small and helpless. The aliens who had just voted to control humanity had no idea what they had really done. They thought they had gained a new servant species. What they had actually done was wake up something that had been pretending to sleep. All stations, maintain stealth protocols, HFY ordered. Continue monitoring alien communications, and begin final preparations for Operation Thunder God. The crew acknowledged her orders and returned to their work. Outside, space looked empty and peaceful, but hidden in that darkness, thousands of ships waited patiently for their moment to strike. The galaxy had made its choice. Soon it would learn the consequences. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the galactic community as a protected species. The arrangement seemed to work well for everyone involved. The Saurians collected their taxes from human colonies and felt important. The other alien species forgot about humans entirely, which was exactly what humanity wanted. Captain Dong-hyun guided his cargo ship Mugunghwa through the checkpoint near Mars. The Saurian inspection station looked like a giant metal claw floating in space. 3 patrol ships surrounded it, their weapons pointed outward to catch any smugglers or pirates. Cargo ship Mugunghwa requesting permission to pass, Dong-hyun said into his radio. The reply came back in the hissing voice of a Saurian officer. State your business, human. Carrying textiles and art from Earth to the colony on Kepler 4, Dong-hyun replied. He had made this same trip dozens of times. The Saurians barely paid attention to him anymore. Any weapons or restricted technology? The officer asked, though he sounded bored. No, sir. Just clothes and paintings, Dong-hyun said. Would you like to inspect the cargo? Not necessary. You humans never carry anything interesting anyway. Permission granted. The patrol ships moved aside to let the Mugunghwa pass. Dong-hyun thanked the officer politely and flew away toward the hyperspace jump point. Behind him, the Saurian guards were already focusing on the next ship in line. If they had looked more carefully at the Mugunghwa, they might have noticed some strange things. The ship was exactly the right size and shape for a simple cargo vessel, but it was much heavier than it should be. Its engines were more powerful than needed, and hidden deep in its hull, sophisticated computers were recording everything about the Saurian patrol patterns and weapons. But the Saurians saw only what they expected to see. Another weak human trader carrying harmless goods. While humanity appeared to submit quietly to their new masters, the rest of the galaxy was becoming more dangerous. Reports came in daily of new conflicts breaking out. The militant hegemony was expanding aggressively from the outer rim. Their bioships consumed everything in their path, turning entire star systems into feeding grounds. Ancient artifacts left behind by the mysterious progenitor race became sources of war. Every species wanted to claim these powerful relics for themselves. Border disputes turned into shooting wars. Trade routes became hunting grounds for pirates. The Galactic Council met more often, but they could never agree on solutions. Each species wanted to protect their own territory first. Their combined fleets were scattered across thousands of systems, trying to maintain order in an increasingly chaotic galaxy. On the neutral research station Kepler 7, Dr. Somin worked quietly in her laboratory. She was supposedly studying alien biology, but her real research went much deeper. The other scientists on the station liked her because she was helpful and never complained about the boring assignments they gave her. Dr. So-min called her colleague, a floating energy being named Flux 9. Have you finished your analysis of the hegemony biosamples? Almost done, So-min replied, looking up from her microscope. These creatures are fascinating. They seem to be part machine and part living tissue. Very advanced bioengineering. What she didn't mention was that she had already figured out 17 different ways to kill the bioships. Her real job was to study alien military technology and find weaknesses that human forces could exploit. Every sample she examined, every scan she took, every friendly conversation she had was actually intelligence gathering. Her research partner, Tae Yang, worked in the physics department. He published papers about theoretical dimensional travel and exotic matter manipulation. Other species found his work charming and ambitious for such a young race. They had no idea that his theories had been put into practice by human engineers decades. Your latest paper on quantum tunneling was very interesting, said Dr. Klex, a crystal-based ethereal scientist. Of course, such technology is far beyond current human capabilities, but the math is surprisingly elegant. Thank you, Tae Yang replied modestly. I hope that someday my people might be able to build such devices. Dr. Klex made the musical sound that meant amusement. Perhaps in a few centuries when your species has matured. These concepts require very advanced manufacturing techniques. Tae Yang nodded politely and returned to his work. If Dr. Klex had known that human factories were already mass-producing quantum tunneling devices, the conversation might have gone very differently. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Ji-hai coordinated with her fellow fleet commanders. Admiral Min-ho controlled the Ghost Fleet, ships that could phase in and out of normal space. Admiral Hae-won commanded the deep space forces that operated in the dark regions between stars. Admiral Sung-jin managed the Sol defense grid that protected Earth and its surrounding colonies. Status report. Ji-hai said during their weekly secure conference. Ghost Fleet is maintaining stealth positions throughout the galaxy, Min-ho reported. We have ships near every major alien military base. They still cannot detect our presence. Deep space operations continue mapping alien supply lines, Hae-won added. We know the location of every major shipyard, weapons factory, and fuel depot. Sol defense grid is operating at full capacity, Sung-jin concluded. All orbital platforms are online and ready. Earth appears completely defenseless to outside observers, but we could destroy any invasion fleet before it reaches the moon. Ji-hai nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. How are our manufacturing facilities performing? Production is ahead of schedule, reported Admiral Min-ho. We now have over 50,000 combat-ready vessels. The new battleships are particularly impressive. Each one could defeat an entire alien fleet by itself. And our intelligence operations? Captain Dong-hyun and his cargo ships have mapped every alien patrol route and defense system, Admiral Hae-won said. Dr. So-min has identified vulnerabilities in all major alien military technologies. Dr. Tae Yang's theoretical research has been successfully implemented across our entire fleet. Ji-hai smiled. The aliens continue to see exactly what we want them to see. When do you think they will test us? Asked Admiral Sung-jin. Soon, Ji-hee replied. The galaxy is becoming more unstable every day. Eventually, something will force them to call on their protected species for help. When that happens, they will expect us to send our pitiful little fleet to die gloriously while their real forces handle the actual fighting. It will be quite a surprise for them, Admiral Min-ho said. Indeed, Ji-hai agreed. 25 years of preparation are about to pay off. The aliens think they know everything about humanity. They think we are weak, primitive, and helpless. They are about to learn how wrong they are. On the bridge of the Mugunghwa, Captain Dong-hyun completed another routine cargo run. He had delivered art and textiles to the human colony on Kepler-4 and was returning to Earth with a load of rare minerals. The Saurian guards waved him through their checkpoint without even bothering to scan his ship. They had no idea that hidden in his cargo hold were the latest intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Information about alien military movements, technological developments, and political tensions. Data that would help humanity prepare for the coming crisis. Another successful trip, Dong-hyun said to his co-pilot, Lieutenant Junseo. The Saurians are getting lazier every day, Junseo observed. They barely looked at us. Good. Dong-hyun replied. The longer they think we're harmless, the better prepared we'll be when the time comes to show our true strength. As the Mugunghwa jumped to hyperspace, heading home to Earth, neither of them noticed the small hegemony scout ship that had been following them. The bioship was nearly invisible, its living hull blending perfectly with the darkness of space. The hegemony had been watching the galaxy's newest members with interest. These humans seemed weak and defenseless. Their colonies would make excellent breeding grounds for new bioships, and their primitive technology would provide useful raw materials. The scout ship's report would soon reach the hegemony command fleet. Humanity was ready for harvesting. The galaxy was about to discover that some prey had teeth. The attack came without warning. Across the galaxy, emergency signals screamed through communication networks as the impossible happened. The hegemony, which had been content to slowly consume the outer rim worlds, suddenly launched a massive coordinated assault on 3 of the most important planets in Council space. On Nexus Prime, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Delegates shouted over each other in dozens of languages as reports flooded in from the disaster zones. The massive display screen showed scenes of destruction that made even the most warlike species pause in horror. The ethereal homeworld of Resonance was burning. The beautiful crystal cities that had stood for millions of years were being torn apart by writhing bioships the size of mountains. The living vessels fed on the exotic matter that powered ethereal civilization, growing larger and stronger with every structure they consumed. Bedrock, the fortress world of the Goliaths, was under siege. The planet's entire surface was one massive military base, protected by shields that could stop a supernova. But the hegemony ships weren't trying to break through the shields. They were landing on the surface and burrowing deep into the planet's core, planning to eat it from the inside out. Prosperity Station, the busiest trade hub in the galaxy, had gone completely silent. The last transmission showed bioships swarming around the massive space station like insects around a dying animal. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked there. Now they were all trapped. Veltar, the Saurian delegate, slithered around the council chamber with his head held high. We must respond immediately, he hissed. Every ship in the galaxy must be called to defend these worlds. The massive Goliath, Thekmor, pounded his stone fist on his chair. My people are dying while we sit here talking. Send the fleets now. High Admiral Zexandra, the leader of the ethereal military, floated in the center of the chamber. Her crystalline body flickered with patterns of fear and anger. Our forces are scattered across 1,000 systems, she said, her voice ringing like broken bells. We cannot defend all 3 targets at once. Then we prioritize, said Fleet Commander Kress, a spider-like being whose species controlled the largest navy in the Council. Save what we can and abandon the rest. Abandon? Thekmor roared. These are core worlds. If we lose them, the hegemony will control half the galaxy. Then what do you suggest? Zexandra demanded. We need every ship we can find. Even the most primitive vessels might be able to serve as decoys or cannon fodder. All eyes turned to Ambassador Hyunwoo, who had been sitting quietly in his chair throughout the debate. The human looked small and fragile compared to the massive beings around him. His simple uniform seemed almost comical in the ornate council chamber. The humans will provide their entire fleet, Veltar announced before Hyunwoo could speak. All 247 ships will be placed under Saurian command for this emergency. That's very generous, said Commander Kress, though his tone suggested he thought the gesture was meaningless. Every little bit helps, I suppose. Your species' honor demands the sacrifice, Veltar continued, looking directly at Hyunwoo. Perhaps your people can die bravely, even if they cannot fight effectively. Hyunwoo stood slowly and bowed politely to the assembled delegates. Humanity will respond appropriately to this threat, he said calmly. Appropriately? Thekmor rumbled. What does that mean? It means we will do what is necessary to protect innocent lives, Hyunwoo replied. We will send our forces to assist in the defense of these worlds. How long until your ships can reach the battle zones? Zexandra asked. They are already on their way, Hyunwoo said. The other delegates looked puzzled. Already on their way? Veltar repeated. How is that possible? The attack only began 3 hours ago. Humanity believes in being prepared, Hyunwoo explained. When we learned of the hegemony threat, we positioned our ships throughout the galaxy to respond quickly to any emergency. This was not entirely true. But it was not entirely false either. Human ships had indeed been positioned throughout the galaxy for months. They just weren't the ships that the aliens expected. In the asteroid fields near Resonance, Captain Dong-hyun received the activation signal aboard his cargo vessel Mugunghwa. For 6 months he had played the role of a simple trader, carrying harmless goods between human colonies. The Saurian patrols had become so used to seeing him that they barely bothered to scan his ship anymore. That was about to change dramatically. All stations. "This is Thunder God Actual," he said into his communication system. "Operation Crimson Dawn is now active. Begin phase transition." Around him, the bridge of his ship began to change. Walls slid back to reveal weapon control stations. Holographic projectors shut down, and the ship's true mass registered on gravitational sensors for the first time. The humble cargo vessel Mugunghwa was actually the battlecruiser Dokdo, one of the most advanced warships ever built. Similar transformations were happening across the galaxy. In empty space near bedrock, what appeared to be a small science vessel suddenly revealed itself as the dreadnought Gangnung. Near Prosperity Station, a mining ship became the heavy cruiser Ulsan. Everywhere the aliens looked, harmless human civilian vessels were dropping their disguises and showing their true nature. The Saurian monitoring stations detected impossible readings. Commander Zarthon stared at his sensor display in disbelief as ship after ship appeared on his screens. The readings had to be wrong. There was no way 50,000 human warships could simply materialize out of nowhere. "Sir," his communications officer shouted, "I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the sector. How are there so many human ships? Where did they come from?" Zarthon's hands shook as he sent an emergency transmission to Saurian High Command. "Command, this is Monitor Station 7. We have a situation. The humans. They're everywhere. The readings show massive fleets. How is this possible?" The response from his superior was angry and confused. "What are you talking about? The humans have barely 3,000 ships total, and they're all primitive. Check your sensors." "Sir, I've checked them 3 times. The readings are accurate. There are tens of thousands of human warships in this sector alone." At Resonance, the crystal cities continued to burn as hegemony bioships fed on the exotic matter cores. The ethereal defense fleet fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and overwhelmed. Their beautiful crystal ships fired beams of pure energy at the writhing alien vessels. But for every bioship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. Then space itself seemed to ripple and fold. Reality twisted in ways that hurt to look at, and suddenly the human ghost fleet was there. Admiral Minho's ships phased in and out of normal space like living nightmares, striking at the bioships from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The engagement was brutally one-sided. The hegemony bioships, which had seemed unstoppable moments before, found themselves facing weapons they could not understand or defend against. Human ships fired beams that erased matter at the quantum level. Missiles that existed in 17 dimensions at once struck targets that thought they were safely hidden in hyperspace. At bedrock, the Goliath defenders had formed their traditional shield wall formation. Massive stone-hulled ships created an impenetrable barrier around their homeworld. The bioships couldn't break through, but they didn't need to. They were already inside the planetary crust, eating the world from within. Admiral Haewon's deep space fleet solved this problem in a way that made the Goliath commanders stare in amazement. The human ships simply bypassed the barrier entirely, emerging from micro-wormholes within the planet's atmosphere to deliver surgical strikes on the burrowing bioships. At Prosperity Station, Admiral Sung Jin demonstrated humanity's mastery of coordinated warfare. His fleet moved with mechanical precision, each ship functioning as part of a larger tactical organism. The hegemony's swarm tactics, which had overwhelmed every other defense force they had faced, proved completely useless against humanity's synchronized response. The bioships tried to surround and overwhelm individual human vessels, but the human fleet fought as a single entity. When one ship was threatened, dozens of others moved to support it. When the aliens concentrated their forces in one area, the humans struck from 3 different directions at once. Within 6 hours, the unstoppable hegemony armada was in full retreat. 3 separate council worlds had been saved, not by their own mighty fleets, but by the species they had dismissed as primitive and weak. On Nexus Prime, the emergency council session received the first reports of victory with stunned silence. The displays showed scenes that none of them could fully comprehend. Human ships larger than space stations. Weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. Fleets that numbered in the tens of thousands. "This is impossible," Tekmor whispered. "How?" Veltar demanded, his voice barely audible. "How did we miss an entire civilization's true capabilities?" Ambassador Hyunwoo stood calmly in the center of the chamber, looking exactly the same as he had 6 months ago, when they had voted to make humanity a protected species. His expression was polite and modest, showing no hint of triumph or superiority. "Humanity has always valued peace," he said quietly, "but we also understand that peace must sometimes be defended with strength." The transformation was complete and galaxy-shaking. Across human space, every cargo ship, research vessel, and mining platform dropped their holographic disguises like actors removing masks at the end of a play. The galaxy watched in stunned amazement as humanity's true fleet revealed itself. Captain Dong Hyun stood on the bridge of what had been the humble cargo ship Mugunghwa. Now the battlecruiser Dokdo stretched around him for over a kilometer, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack moons. The advanced holographic systems that had hidden the ship's true nature for months finally powered down, revealing technology that made the most advanced alien vessels look like children's toys. "All weapon systems online," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Soo-jin. "Main guns charged and ready. Enemy bioships are maintaining their attack formation." "Very well," Dong Hyun replied calmly. "Show them what real firepower looks like." The Dokdo's main cannon fired once. The beam of concentrated exotic matter tore through space and struck the largest hegemony bioship at the center of their formation. The alien vessel, which had been the size of a small city, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, but erased from reality as if it had never been there at all. From hidden bases throughout the galaxy, the true human fleet emerged. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids shook off their rocky camouflage. Vessels hiding in the atmospheres of gas giants rose up through the clouds like metal whales, breaching the surface of an ocean. Battle stations that had been invisible in the darkness between stars suddenly blazed with the light of 1,000 suns. Admiral Ji-hai commanded the operation from the bridge of the super dreadnought Taegukgi. The ship was larger than most space stations, its hull incorporating technologies that the Alien Council had never imagined possible. Around her, the command crew worked with quiet efficiency, coordinating the movements of 50,000 warships across 3 separate battle zones. "Ma'am," called Communications Officer Yoon Jung, "we're receiving panicked transmissions from Saurian monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. They're detecting massive fleet movements in every sector." "Let them panic," Ji-hai replied with grim satisfaction. "For 6 months they've been watching us through their sensors. Now they can see what we've really been doing all this time." At the Saurian monitoring station near Mars, Commander Zarthon watched his displays with growing horror. The readings showed impossible numbers. 50,000 ships, 100,000. The sensors couldn't keep up with the vessels appearing out of nowhere. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How is this possible?" His second-in-command, a young Saurian named Kesrick, was frantically checking the sensor arrays. "Sir, the equipment is functioning perfectly. These readings are accurate. The humans have somehow hidden an entire armada from us. But we've been watching them for months," Zarthon protested. "We know every ship they have. 3,000 vessels, all of them primitive." "Not primitive, sir," Kesrick said quietly. "Disguised." At Resonance, the battle for the ethereal homeworld had taken a dramatic turn. The crystal cities were still burning. But now the hegemony bioships found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand or counter. Admiral Minho's ghost fleet materialized around the alien vessels like phantoms from a nightmare. The human ships existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, phasing in and out of normal space to strike from impossible angles. When the bioships tried to fight back, their weapons passed harmlessly through vessels that weren't entirely present in their reality. "Target the feeding tendrils," Minho ordered from the bridge of his flagship, the Incheon. "Cut them off from their food source." The ghost ships responded with surgical precision. Beams of coherent dimensional energy sliced through the massive tentacles that the bioships used to drain exotic matter from the crystal cities. Deprived of their power source, the alien vessels began to weaken and slow. The ethereal defenders, who had been fighting a losing battle moments before, watched in amazement as their mysterious human allies turned the tide. High Admiral Zexandra sent a transmission to the human fleet, her crystalline voice ringing with gratitude and disbelief. "Human ships, this is Ethereal Command. We don't understand how you're doing this, but thank you. Our cities are saved." "You're welcome," Minho replied simply. "Just stay back and let us work." At Bedrock, the situation had been even more desperate. The hegemony bioships had burrowed deep into the planet's crust and were eating the world from the inside out. The massive Goliath defenders had formed their traditional shield wall around the planet, but they couldn't attack the enemies inside without destroying their own homeworld. Admiral Haywan's deep space fleet provided a solution that left the Goliath commanders speechless. The human ships opened micro-wormholes directly inside the planet's atmosphere, allowing them to strike at the burrowing bioships without passing through the defensive shield wall. "Impossible," rumbled Commander Thecamore as he watched the human vessels emerge from tiny tiers in space itself. Precision dimensional warfare inside a planetary atmosphere. The calculations alone would require a computer the size of a moon. His tactical officer, a younger Goliath named Stoneheart, was analyzing the human weapon signatures. "Sir, these aren't just advanced weapons. They're using technology that we thought was purely theoretical, reality manipulation at the quantum level." The human ships worked systematically through Bedrock's interior, hunting down every bioship that had invaded the planet. Their weapons were incredibly precise, destroying the alien invaders without damaging the surrounding rock or the Goliath cities built within it. At Prosperity Station, Admiral Sungjin faced the most complex challenge. The massive trade hub was swarming with bioships and millions of innocent beings were trapped inside. Any conventional attack would kill more civilians than enemies. His solution demonstrated humanity's mastery of coordinated warfare. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship perfectly synchronized with all the others. They created a three-dimensional web of interlocking fire patterns that selectively targeted only the bioships, while leaving the station itself untouched. "How are they doing this?" wondered Captain Flux 9, an ethereal trader who was trapped inside the station. "The human ships are firing thousands of weapons simultaneously, but none of them are hitting us." Dr. Somin, who was also on the station, watched the battle through an observation window with a small smile. She had spent months pretending to be a harmless researcher, while actually mapping every alien weakness and vulnerability. Now she was seeing her work put to use. "They're using quantum-linked targeting systems," she explained to the confused aliens around her. "Each weapon is connected to a central tactical computer that calculates the perfect firing solution for every shot." "It's really quite elegant." The aliens stared at her. They were beginning to realize that the quiet human scientist who had worked beside them for months was not quite what she had seemed. The battle was over in 6 hours. The hegemony's unstoppable armada, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was not just defeated but completely annihilated. Not a single bioship escaped to report back to their commanders. 3 core worlds of galactic civilization had been saved by the species that everyone had dismissed as weak and primitive. The aftermath was even more shocking than the battle itself. As human ships regrouped in the 3 systems, their true numbers became clear. The aliens counted 50,000 vessels in the first wave alone, and more were still arriving through dimensional gates and hyperspace jumps. Where did they all come from? Admiral Zexandra transmitted to her commanders. "We had ships watching human space constantly. How did they hide so many vessels?" The answer came from Admiral Jihai herself, her image appearing on communication screens throughout the 3 systems. The small, gray-haired woman looked exactly like what she was, a military commander who had been planning this moment for decades. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various classifications," she began formally, "I am Admiral Jihai of the Human Defense Force. I believe some explanations are in order." The transmission was being broadcast to every ship and station in the 3 systems. Millions of aliens listened as the human admiral calmly explained what they had just witnessed. "For the past 6 months, you have been observing what you believe to be humanity's entire military capability. 3,000 ships using primitive technology. This was exactly what we wanted you to see." Gasps and mutters of amazement echoed across the communication channels. "Every cargo run, every research mission, every diplomatic contact has been carefully designed to reinforce your perception of human weakness. Our primitive ships were actually advanced holographic projections. Our harmless trade vessels were reconnaissance platforms mapping your defenses. Our theoretical research was being implemented in weapons factories hidden throughout dark space. Admiral Ji-hai paused to let this information sink in before continuing. Humanity learned long ago that in a galaxy full of predators, the best survival strategy is to appear weak while becoming strong. We have spent the last 25 years preparing for exactly this scenario. We studied your technologies, mapped your weaknesses, and built a military force specifically designed to counter every threat we might face. The galaxy changed overnight. What had been a collection of squabbling species suddenly became a very different place, with humanity at its center. The emergency council sessions that followed the hegemony's defeat were unlike anything in galactic history. Ambassador Hyun-woo no longer stood before the assembled delegates as a supplicant seeking protection. His chair had been moved to the head of the great council table, and when he spoke, the entire galaxy listened. The quiet, modest human, who had accepted their term 6 months ago, now sat among the most powerful beings in known space as an equal. The question before us today, Hyun-woo said calmly, is how we move forward from here. The old order has clearly changed. We must decide what the new one will look like. Veltar, the Saurian delegate, who had once spoken so confidently about human weakness, now struggled to find his voice. How? He asked, his words barely above a whisper. How did we miss an entire civilization's true capabilities? We had monitoring stations throughout your space. We watched your every move. You saw exactly what we wanted you to see, replied Admiral Ji-hee, whose holographic image appeared beside Hyun-woo. Every cargo ship that passed through your checkpoints was actually a reconnaissance vessel. Every trade manifest was carefully designed to hide our true activities. Every diplomatic contact was planned to reinforce your assumptions about our primitive nature. The scope of humanity's deception was staggering. For 25 years, they had maintained the illusion of being a weak, developing species, while secretly building the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. Every alien expert who had studied humanity had been completely fooled. Tekmor, the massive Goliath who had calculated humanity's military strength at 0.003% of the Council's weakest member, now reviewed the tactical data from the recent battle with growing amazement. These numbers cannot be correct, he rumbled. Your ships use technology that should not exist. Reality manipulation at the quantum level, dimensional phase warfare, precision exotic matter weaponry. All technologies that we developed based on careful study of your own scientific databases, Admiral Ji-hai explained. Dr. So-min's theoretical research into alien biology actually identified 17 different ways to neutralize bioship defenses. Dr. Tae-yang's papers on dimensional physics have been implemented across our entire fleet for the past decade. The aliens were beginning to understand that every human they had encountered had been part of an elaborate intelligence operation. The helpful scientists, the humble traders, the polite diplomats, all of them had been gathering information and preparing for this moment. Dr. So-min herself appeared on the communication channel from Prosperity Station, where she was helping with the evacuation of wounded civilians. I should mention that my real specialty is xenobiology warfare, she said with the same quiet smile that had fooled her colleagues for months. Understanding how alien technologies work also means understanding how to make them stop working. Captain Dong-hyun's voice joined the conversation from his position near resonance. Our cargo runs were actually mapping missions. We know the location of every major military installation, supply depot, and manufacturing facility in Council space. Not for conquest, he added quickly, but for defense. We needed to understand what we might face. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just hidden their strength. They had been systematically studying every aspect of galactic civilization while appearing completely harmless. They knew more about each alien species than those species knew about each other. High Admiral Zexandra, her crystalline form flickering with patterns of confusion and respect, asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What do you want? From us now? You have the power to conquer the entire galaxy. Why haven't you? Hyun-woo's response was simple and direct. Because conquest was never our goal. We want what we have always wanted: peace, security, and the freedom to develop our civilization without interference. The only difference is that now we have the strength to guarantee these things. The new balance of power was already reshaping galactic politics. Species that had mocked humanity now sent urgent diplomatic messages requesting meetings. Trade agreements that had been dismissed as unimportant suddenly became high priorities. Military alliances that had seemed unnecessary were now desperately sought. Admiral Minho transmitted from his position near Bedrock, where his ghost fleet was helping with the cleanup operations. We have no interest in ruling over other species or taking their territory, but we will not tolerate threats to human colonies or our allies. The galaxy is big enough for all of us to prosper. The hegemony's defeat had sent shockwaves through every militant organization in the galaxy. The bioships that had seemed unstoppable were now revealed to be vulnerable to human weapons technology. Pirates and raiders who had been growing bolder now reconsidered their activities. Even the most aggressive species began to think twice about expansion plans. "You dismantled them," observed Admiral Zexandra as she reviewed the battle reports. The hegemony wasn't just defeated. They were systematically countered at every turn. Every tactic they used, every weapon they deployed, you had a specific response ready. "We've been preparing for this conflict for 15 years, Admiral Jihai confirmed. "We identified the hegemony as a major threat early in our development and designed our entire military doctrine around stopping them. When they finally attacked, we were ready." The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about underestimating humanity. The species they had dismissed as primitive had actually been playing a much longer game than any of them had realized. While the aliens had been focused on immediate territorial disputes and political maneuvering, humanity had been quietly preparing for the conflicts that really mattered. Fleet Commander Kress, the spider-like being who controlled one of the largest navies in the Council, transmitted a formal request. "We would like to propose a mutual defense agreement with humanity. Our species has much to offer in terms of raw materials and manufacturing capacity. We appreciate the offer," Hyun-woo replied diplomatically. "We are open to discussions about cooperation between our peoples. However, any agreements will be between equals, not protector and protected." The word equals carried special weight. 6 months ago, humanity had been classified as a protected juvenile species. Now they were being invited to join the galaxy's most exclusive military alliances as senior partners. The Saurian Empire, which had claimed authority over human space, quietly withdrew their governors and monitoring stations. Veltar announced the change with as much dignity as he could manage. "The Saurian Empire recognizes that humanity has matured beyond the need for our protection. We withdraw all claims to human territory and request the establishment of normal diplomatic relations." "Granted," Hyun-woo said simply. "We harbor no ill will toward the Saurian people. Your administrators were courteous and professional during their time in our space." This magnanimous response only reinforced humanity's new status. They had the power to humiliate or punish the species that had claimed dominion over them, but chose instead to treat their former overseers with respect and dignity. It was exactly the kind of behavior that the galaxy expected from a truly advanced civilization. The practical implications of the new order became clear quickly. Human ships began regular patrols of the major trade routes, their presence deterring piracy and keeping commerce flowing smoothly. The dimensional gate technology that humanity had developed allowed for rapid response to emergencies anywhere in the galaxy. When the crystal miners of Harmony 7 sent a distress call about raiders attacking their facilities, a human patrol squadron arrived within 2 hours. The raiders took one look at the approaching human vessels and fled without firing a shot. "It's remarkable," transmitted the mining supervisor, a crystalline being named Cleartone. "Just 6 months ago, we had never heard of humans. Now your ships are keeping our trade routes safe," Admiral Sung-jin responded from his command ship. "Peaceful commerce benefits everyone. We have no interest in allowing pirates to disrupt the flow of goods and resources that keep civilization functioning." The technology sharing that followed was equally transformative. Humanity began selectively revealing some of their advances to allied species. Medical technologies that could heal previously incurable diseases. manufacturing techniques that increased efficiency by orders of magnitude, agricultural methods that could feed entire worlds with minimal resources, but they were careful about what they shared and with whom. The galaxy had learned that humanity was capable of incredible deception when necessary. No one wanted to test whether they were also capable of incredible retaliation. Dr. Tae Yang, working from his laboratory on Kepler-7, began publishing papers that contained actual implementation details rather than just theory. Practical applications of quantum tunneling in medical technology became the most downloaded scientific paper in galactic history. "Your people continue to amaze us," said Dr. Klex, the ethereal scientist who had once patronized Tae Yang's work. "We are honored to collaborate with such an advanced civilization." The transformation was complete when the Galactic Council formally voted to restructure itself. Humanity was granted permanent seats on all major committees.